apologize in advance. I probably phoned this one in a bit. I've been traveling and doing some other things before, but I can still talk a lot about Pydantic, so hopefully I can answer any questions you have, even if the demo is a bit brief. So I guess this is a Python meetup, so who here has used Pydantic before?
Just started using it in
One, two. I know he had, but he is not here. So here we go. I'm gonna try and, I don't have any slides. I'm just gonna be going through VS Code and going through, some code. So the idea of Pydantic is you can create Python classes and use those to essentially validate and serialize data that you're working with. And this is a real problem with Python because so often, I assume, you'll kind of run into just this dictionary and list soup, and it's really hard to figure out what the actual shape of an object or sort of an interface is like. Especially with the situation of type hinting in the Python ecosystem. I mean, I know type sticks are nice, but
font size.
Yeah, that's it.
Max it.
I'm like, I think
okay. Do need my terminal for some of these things. Can we get larger? Yeah, I know where everything is, so we're just gonna use code for this. There we go. So, from a functional perspective, basically, most everything you're doing with Pydantic, you are importing from this base model class. And so, if you've ever used data classes, it should look pretty familiar. Well, actually, I guess that's another question. Like, does anyone regularly use data classes for this kind of work?
I know what they are, but I don't use them.
Okay, so they're a standard library feature, and they basically just let you define classes, and you don't have to worry about all the init logic going on. You just say, hey, here are the properties that they have, and you don't have to go and say, okay, well, here's every single one of those, and I'm just going to assign it to the self.property. And Pydantic is also really smart about these things. So I'm going to just use this example here. So we have this VTuber base model, and it maps to essentially some example data that I built out. So JSON. So right here, we're loading this, and you get Barbara, it's a hollow VTuber. And you're going to say, hey, here's some attributes we're going to parse out. So we can do a lot with this data. Like right now, JSON, you get basically dictionaries, strings, numbers, and lists, and that's what you're working with. Well, we want, richer context here. So here we're going to find, hey, we want to say they belong to a particular company. They are a type, and I decided to use the Python string node class here, which is something that Pydantic basically just handles natively. You can do the same thing with literal types as well, but I do like using enums for anything that basically is just a bounded list or a set of things.
Is there a difference between the string enum and the literal?
So the enum is an object.
Uh-huh.
So if we wanted to say, hey, let's see, type, you pretty much just have to do type.value to get the string value of it. But you could also do a comparison. It's like their object type equals your VTuber type dot, you say square bracket or indeed.
Okay.
And it's not a huge difference. Just with a literal, you don't have that knowledge of things. It's just, this is a string, it can be one of these two things, and if you're doing any sort of comparison, well, you just have to know what it should be.
But at the linter, your linter is going to be able to figure out that company can only be a hollow live n, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can rely on your linter for that. I mean, it kind of comes up to personal preference at this point.
Uh-huh.
Just with enums, you can more easily define a set of values. values.
Does Pydantic treat those differently when it's doing the parsing? Like, it will throw a different error between a literal versus a string enum?
I actually have not tried that before. I mean, either way, if it's not in a literal or if it's not an enum value, it's going to throw a validation error.
Okay.
So essentially, there won't be a difference on the validation side.
Okay.
Does this str enum, does that store like an integer enumeration code, or does it store the string?
It stores the string. So it's for the specific case where you, when I have this, enum values that map to a string. There's another example in here that I think in the newer Python that I think is like HTTP methods. So you can just get an enum of those and not have to worry about typing the right one. I mean, it's not hard, but it adds up.
So for the noobs, is str enum, is this specific to Pydantic, or is that in the base Python now?
strenum is the base Python library. I think it's post or 3.12 and up. I'd actually have to go look.
Well, what version are you of Python are you running right now?
I am on Python 3.12.6. It's kind of old. It's just what I have set with Python and have a lot of stuff running on. So now what I was going to do here is just go ahead and run this. And on all of these, I'm pretty much just dumping the outputs. So you can.
Python.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh boy. Check is instance invalidated from JSON. Okay. Oh, interesting. So I think with this one, and I'm going to curse myself for not running this, it actually does not know how to handle that. So if we just change that to a literal annotation, okay, type things in there. There we go, it actually validates it. So I told you, you have to do a little bit of extra work with that. It will be able to validate a object that you pass in that has the sturdy enum type, but from JSON, it is a little trickier. So in all of these, I've basically just done kind of a round trip. Okay, we're loading this in. So this is just the representation of our object. You can see like the date, which was a string in JSON. It's converted to a daton.date. And then, so if you want to basically, convert this back to a dictionary for something that doesn't natively work with Pydantic, or just back to JSON to kind of round trip it, you can do that, and you can set up serialization rules essentially. So,
is that like if you have like string as true instead of true?
In what context?
Right, you have graduated as bool, but what if in the example 1.json you had a string as true?
Yeah, let's see. So it will.
It looks like it does do casting.
Yeah, so it will cast to certain values.
Okay.
The one that it specifically doesn't do is numbers.
Okay.
So in Pydantic v1, there used to be some casting between like, we'll try and make this a string into an integer, and they just did away with that and says, if you want to do that, go set up a custom validator for it. So it is a little more stricter about that, but I think generally with the bool casting, it checks the truthiness of it in Python. So if it's a string here, then I think, actually, let's see, if I set that, aha. So, false, yeah, that also works, but if, nice. Learning a little bit about this today too. So yeah.
So
See what I
you
mean by
changed
this?
graduated to Y?
Yes.
Was this considered truthy?
Yeah. Any string in Python that's not empty is considered true. They will always validate to true. Like you can do if a non-empty string is
Yeah.
going to be true.
Actually, in this case, it is a specific set of just normal kind of like true and false inputs, like 1, 0, yes, no, true and false. So if I just put just random characters in, it does not actually validate that, because what is it supposed to make of the string ZZZ?
Is it? Did you have some kind of schema that said it was supposed to be a bool, and it's trying to coerce it to a bool?
Yes.
I did, yes. Okay, so that makes sense, right? We're basically converting some outside data into a Python object. Well, that's why these didn't blow up, because I didn't set type as an enum. So on this one, I'm just going to expand our model of it and work with some field validators. So these are basically additional validation that you can do on a Pydantic object. So let's say these are the same basically. We want to say on company and actually, yeah. So on this one, it's a field validator. This error is never going to show up in this demo, but it's essentially, you can do something along the lines of, if you want to check some property of like a string and validate on that more so than just it's a string, you can do that. And you can just say, hey, in the company name, if there's some ABC company, like throw a value error.
So in this, within this base model, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can also pass in a field called company,
Mm-hmm.
but it won't be explicitly defined. Oh no, it is explicitly defined.
Yeah. So all of your field validators, model validators, they act on the fields we've explicitly defined.
Okay.
We just pass it in as a string here. And then the mode before and after is basically, this is happening after the normal Pydantic validation is run. You can also do some more advanced things where if you say mode is before, you can just manipulate that data before it ever gets to the check to say, hey, is this a string? So if you had some value that you knew was not like a valid string, if you had some bytes perhaps, and you wanted to make sure that they get converted to a string at some point, you can do that. So you have field validators, these run as a class method. And you can also do model validators, which I believe run after all the field level validation is done. So after we made sure, hey, all of these things are what we were expecting, we can do some like additional kind of interrelated logic on them. So on this one, we essentially say, if our value of graduated is true and then there is no date, then that would raise a value error. Oh my gosh. Here we go. It just took a minute. So if you run Python 3 source sample 1 2 valid. Don't mind this. I am having some weird Python package issues today. All right, so that's going to be an invalid Pydantic validation. So it throws a validation error, and out of that we can get basically, okay, how many errors did we have, and then what are those errors? So you could handle them individually and say, maybe there's some things that are invalid and we just don't care about. I can't imagine why. Like typically you should just handle all of your cases as part of your type annotations, but it could also, return more granular info to your end users or just your calling code.
Can you go up?
Oh yeah, no problem.
I'm wondering why ensure company the field validator is at the class level instead of at the instance level. be a design decision by Pydantic developers.
It is, yes. They, for whatever reason, basically just operate as a class method because you're passing in everything you need to this function. You're not referencing self anywhere.
Does this get automatically called?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there
Yeah,
a,
so the decorator there essentially it sets it up to be called as part of the normal.
is there a way to define a computed field?
There is, yes.
Okay.
I have that in another example.
Okay, cool. And I suppose in the opposite of that, a computer field, you're going from some data, you're going from the model to the JSON output, and is there a way to go from the JSON model, right, and finagle that into a Pydantic model? So the opposite of a computed field. I imagine there probably would be, right? I can't see why.
I'm not sure if I understand that.
Like a computed field, it will be like, you have your Pydantic model,
Mhm.
right? But when you export to JSON, it's not going to look exactly like the Pydantic model.
Oh yeah. So.
And then the reverse of that is you have, say, like a list
Mhm.
that you're passing in, but once you parse that model, right, maybe you have like a sum, you have an aggregation function for a list of numbers that you passed in.
Yeah,
Do you-
I think if you pass a computed field into a model, I'm not actually sure what happens. It's never something that's actually came up in my normal use of computed fields.
Okay.
The computed field is something after the deserialization process runs, it adds an extra member.
Essentially, yes, it lets you use the attributes that you've validated,
Deserialized or
and you can just reference it as a normal property on that class. I think it'll show up in your serialization output, although that is toggleable. And then if you're loading in data, that is actually a good question, what happens? But here, I decided to do a more complex example that is essentially, okay, I don't know how familiar everybody is with like TLS certificates.
Yes.
Okay, well, you use them all the time. In this case, I decided to do a really silly example where, maybe for some reason you have a certificate. Okay, hold on. I need to actually grab it, and then I have a helper function that will. Okay.
is the certificate different than the PEM file?
No, I believe that is like the encoding format for it.
Alright, take out your project, copy down the certificate file for Arizona.
Yeah, nobody copy my cert, please. It's completely useless because it's basically just one of our internal platforms.
Oh, okay.
It's not the
It's not the
root
public-
root cert for the entire university.
No, it's just one we use for.
Yeah, let's just give the private key for the entire University of Arizona system to it.
Yeah, I don't actually need the key for this one. I just need the. Okay, so this will do that. Oh my gosh. If anyone knows what's going on with my Python environment here, I would love it.
I don't use virtual environments in Python. I exclusively use Docker.
I mean, that is probably the way to do it. I had a really good VM setup for a while, and it is no longer good, apparently. Okay. There we go.
Have you ever heard of UV?
Oh, yeah. Really big fan, actually.
It's my favorite.
Does it do anything different for virtual environment, or does UV have that built in or something?
It does, and I think that's actually kind of what
It's
I'm
just
running
supposed to
into
be
here.
faster.
Yeah, UV is really fast.
It's magic.
Because it's written in Rust, right, David?
It is.
I mean, Rust can't cure everything, but
It does a pretty good job. So here's my certificate. Nobody copied. So yeah, what we're gonna do here is we have a cert that for some reason exists in a JSON blob. I don't know why, but it's something I've seen before. I've also seen private keys in there. I just picked TLS because I was on an airplane and I didn't want to mess around with the hazmat section of this. The X509 bits have some good, more sophisticated pieces. So, in order to do this, you end up writing a lot more code, unfortunately. And there's really two things that you have to do. You can say, are arbitrary types allowed? And that will just let Pydantic say, you know what, if you pass in an object and it has this type, just accept it. Although that completely blows up if you're doing any kind of JSON validation, because it doesn't know how to convert that into the type you're looking for. And actually, I should.
Hang on. What if I wanted a field called model config?
That's too bad. Don't do that.
What, that seems like a major design oversight.
You'd have to take it up with the Pydantic developers. I'm sure they'll be receptive. Yeah.
Can you try? Can you try just having? Can you try a Pydantic model with model config as a field?
Well, if you had a model config field in JSON, would it let you assign it to a different name in Python?
Try that.
So I wonder this because it will make more sense to have a double underscore model config double underscore to say that this is not.
Okay, so we just say model config.
Yeah.
And it is a string. It just complains that you're overriding something in the base class tag.
Okay, so it complains. Cool.
Yep.
Now I know. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. So I have two examples of how to do this. One way is just with a field validator, and oh yeah, that's what arbitrary types is on. I got this confused. So this is the one that's saying, okay, this is the type. It doesn't really know anything about Pydantic, so if Pydantic tries to do things with it, it just blows up. But we can, because we can tell Pydantic to allow it, we can use our validators here.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so in this one, we're running it in the before mode. So this is all happening before Pydantic tries to ask, how do I validate this thing? And so it's pretty easy. We just load in some bytes that are encoded. We convert the string to bytes and we pass it into our load certificate function. That's from the cryptography module. It just does all the heavy lifting for us. It's really nice. And it returns that as certificate objects. Everything's good. And then on the opposite side of that round trip, we have a serializer, and we can define it as basically, I think plain is just, don't do anything special, just run this function to figure out what to do. And we can tell, like, hey, when we serialize things, our return type, it's going to be a string, and when used, you can have multiple types of serializers in Pydantic. I'm not going to go into that. But for the most part, it's JSON, so it's saying, if we try and convert this to JSON, just run this particular function here.
What is serialization info?
Serialization info is just some Pydantic specific metadata that gets passed to this function.
Okay.
We don't actually need it here. It tells us a lot of values about what's going on right now at this point in the life cycle.
Okay.
And so you can probably do more complicated things with it, but you really don't need to most of the time. And then we're running the opposite here. We do get a reference to self when we're doing that, because this one is not a class method, so we can say, hey, get the public bytes from this in this particular encoding, and then decode it back to a string, and then boom, we have a TLS certificate and a JSON blob for some reason.
Okay, so this ensure thing function, right, with this decorator, is basically saying I can convert any arbitrary data that gets passed into a Python object, provided I give a serialization, a way to instantiate it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I can do something completely unreasonable and crazy and be like, I'm going to turn this into a function based on some JSON data Okay.
So yeah, that is really just a completely arbitrary transform that's going on there.
Alright.
And you're telling Pydantic how to do that. So, I mean, I'm sure we know what this looks like. It's not super interesting, just a certificate object. But it's still nice. Just realized that David is not on his mechanical keyboard and is hitting all the wrong keys. Okay, so this is just going to bring a lot of certificate spam. But you can see, like, this is an actual certificate object that's getting, represented here. And you just it's parse everything out of this string and round trips it back to JSON.
Yeah, are you recording it right now?
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna send it down.
I'm pretty sure this is expired. Anyways, so yeah, that's what happens. It's not very pretty to look at, but there is another way to do this with a lot more code.